can we just subtract the x and the 15? Yes or no? So I'm actually going to write this as 2x squared minus x minus 15 equals 0. So I subtracted the x from both sides, and I subtracted the 15. Okay, because I don't want my leading coefficient to be negative. I don't like that. So in your graphing calculator, all you're going to do is go to the y equals. It's like one of those gray buttons at the top, the first gray button. Y equals, clear out any other equation that's in there because mine has a whole butt ton of equations in it. You're going to type in the equation x squared. So that's the little xt alpha whatever. I don't know why I can't show my screen to you guys, but I do know why. So x squared minus, if you don't know where the x is, raise your hand and I'll come around and show you, minus x minus 15. Okay. And then you're going to hit the calc button, which is like the second trace button. And I want you to go down to 0. Hit 0. I'm going to show you how to find the zeros. So you can just hit trace and it'll graph it. So after you do your y equals button, you're going to input your equation 2x squared minus x minus 15. You don't have to put that it equals 0 because it's a y equals. You need to put this in. Then you can hit the trace button, and that'll give you a parabola. You can hit the second button and trace again. And I want you to then hit hit second trace and then number 2. So second trace 2, that'll give you the zeros. But you have to choose where they go. It'll give you the zeros. And you have to choose where they go. So you're gonna have to arrow. You'll see your little cursor. So you're left bound and you're right bound. You have to just arrow above and below the x-axis for each part. So I can't show you this because I don't have a camera. Yeah, here's what I want. Here's what I'm going to tell you guys. I put a video right here in your module today. It's 4 minutes. Maybe it was in yesterday's module. Here we go. Let's just watch this really fast. It's literally so first thing he did is went to the y equals screen. We're at the y equals screen. And he input his function. I know this is a cubic function, but this was the best example. I'm trying to make it not be so cut off on the screen, but I can't. Is that me or is that someone else? Someone else watching that? Where's that speaker coming from? That's never happened before, ever. Okay, sorry. That freaked me out.
-5 and 5. On the x's. And between -10 and 10.
So all he's doing is setting a window for his
the same way, so it looks like mine.
box. You guys don't need to do that.
Press our graph button and take one
Press
more.
your graph button and you'll see your
So if
function.
you look at the graph, you can see that it actually crosses the x-axis.
Your graph. Yes, crosses the x-axis.
So we want to have the calculator find each.
You're going to hit the second
do that.
trace button and you go down to number 2, 0. So you're going to use your up and down cursor.
This will bring out all of our calculating options. And number 2 says 0.
To find your zeros.
Highlight that one and press.
The cursor right here. I'm trying to bring it down.
Now, I have to basically box in these zeros to help the calculator start to find them. So right now it's asking for a left bound. If I use my arrow keys, I have this little blinking cursor on the screen that starts to move.
That's my right bound.
So I want to move this little blinking cursor so it's somewhere on the left side of the zero I'm looking
Now you have to do it on the other side.
So this is the zero I'm trying to hunt down. I've moved this cursor somewhere on the left side.
So the second trace button.
Right, I'm going to press enter. and now it wants to know the right bound. So now we're going to move that cursor to someplace on the right side of that zero. As soon as you get it there, press enter one more time. And now it finally wants to know again. So where do you think that zero is? You can move your cursor as close as you can to that zero. It actually doesn't have to be right on, but just kind of somewhere close. And press enter one more time. Now the calculator will think for it. It actually displays the location of that zero. It gives us an XY coordinate. So here it is telling me that x is equal to, looks like a -3. This is a good idea to write down.
Yeah, get it right there. Listen, I'm not going to spend 20 minutes on this. You can watch the videos up close. Here's what I'm going to tell you. Here's what I'm going to tell you. You are using the second. Stop. You are using the second trace button. You hit second trace, and and then number 2, it says 0. Second function trace, and then when you press number 2, you're choosing the 0. You have to give it a boundary. You have to give it a 0 boundary. The calculator can't do all of the thinking for you. So if this is your graph and your x-axis looks like this, you have to, it'll first say left bound. You have to put your cursor above it and hit enter. Then you have to take your little cursor with your arrow buttons and put it below it and hit enter again. And it'll say, your screen will say guess, question mark. Just hit enter. We don't need to guess. When you hit enter, it'll tell you that x equals -2.5 for that first function. Okay? It's a real pain in the butt on your graphing calculator. That's why Desmos is so much better. So, but I want to show you how to do it. So then you're going to have to hit the second trace again, and you need to find your 0 for over here. Lower bound and upper bound, left bound, right bound. You're going to hit those little, like, get on the bottom of it, get on the top of it. You're just boxing it in around the root. Remember, these are the roots. The calculator can't find it unless you give it a little parameter to check. And then you hit enter. It'll say, do you want to guess? No, you don't want to guess. And you should get, I don't know what you get on that one. I didn't finish it. So now I'm going to pull up Desmos so you can just see how much easier it is. Because this is what you're graphing on. Like, this is your feature for your test. Plus, for those of you that don't have a graphing calculator at home, this just makes so much more sense. So what was our equation? Y equals 2x squared minus x minus 15, correct? Am I right? So when I just touch it, look at that. I just touch it. It already tells me what the point is. Look at that. I just touch it. I don't have to do anything except just touch where the point is. That's so much easier than hitting second trace number 2 and setting bounds. So much easier, okay? So that's how you do it on your Desmos calculator. All right, so now I'm not going to do any more calculating. I just want to show you how to use it, and now we're going to fill out our notes. Okay, so the first thing I want you to see is that your axis of symmetry. Let's figure that out. How am I going to do that? That's what that A period, O period, S is. Talk to me about the axis of symmetry. We did it in our notes yesterday. Look, if you forgot. How do I find that? It's x equals negative b over 2a. Yes, ma'am. That is your equation. So we're using this. So we're going to have a x equals something because this is a vertical line. Your axis of symmetry is a vertical line. So x equals the opposite of b. Well, right now my b is a -1. The opposite of that, and 2 times the a term, which is 2. Well, the opposite of -1 is +1, and 2 times 2 is 4. So that means that the axis of symmetry is taking place, sorry, that should be a 4. The axis of symmetry takes place where x equals 1/4. So when I go to my graphing calculator in Desmos, if I touch right here at 0.25, that, do you see where I'm at? Do you see the 0.25? it automatically kind of pulls your cursor there because that's your vertex. So 0.25, x equals 0.25 or 1/4. That's my axis of symmetry. Now I have to plug that in to find my vertex. We're only going to do this once, but we're still going to do it. So let's plug this in to find my vertex. So I have 2 times x is 1/4 squared minus 1 times 1/4 minus 15. Well, let's see. 1/4 times 1/4 is 1/16. 2 times 1/16 is 1/8. -1 times 1/4 is -1/4. And I'm actually going to rewrite that as -1/4 is the same thing as -2/8 minus 15. So 1 minus 2/8 is -1/8 minus 15. And that's actually going to be -15.125 because the fraction 1/8 is the decimal 0.125. So my vertex is 0.25 or 1/4 and -15.125. Again, we're not going to keep doing the vertex. We're not going to keep calculating it. We're just going to let the graph do the work for us, okay? All right. Does this graph have a maximum or a minimum? How do you know without even looking at the graph? Yeah, remember it was 2x squared minus x minus 15 equals 0. My leading coefficient is positive. That means it has a minimum. What is the minimum value? Well, the minimum value is the y coordinate of your vertex. So the lowest this graph goes, is when y equals, the lowest this graph goes is y equals -15.125. That's the lowest point on your graph. Let's talk about your domain and range. This graph looks like this. Domain means what? What does domain mean? All the x values. What are the x values that I can put in here? Can I put any x value in the world in here? -2, -7, -2,482,000. Yeah, the domain is all real numbers. Okay. But what about the range? Remember, the range is your y values. What's the lowest y value? Well, the lowest y value is my minimum, right? So y has to be greater than or equal to -15.125. So all of the numbers, all of the y values in my graph have to be bigger than -15.125. If you look at the graph of the equation, you can see that this -15.125 is the lowest point. Everything else is above it. That's why we say it's got to be greater than or equal to. Okay. All right, so let's finish. Where does this graph increase? Remember that we said that the vertex was the turning point. We said that yesterday. Vertex is the turning point. So if you think about your graph, and again, I'm going to just use the one that I drew on, from x is greater than or equal to 1/4, it's increasing. And for all the numbers that are less than 1/4, it's decreasing. So when x is greater than 1/4, it's increasing. When x is less than 1/4, it's decreasing. And I'm going to show you again on the graph. I just can't draw on this picture. So remember, increasing means all these values are moving upward. They're getting bigger. As x gets bigger, y gets bigger. Decreasing says as x gets bigger, y gets smaller. Okay. All right. Next one. We're not going to do axis of symmetry or vertex like mathematically. Okay. We're just going to do them looking at our picture. So I want everyone to either in Desmos or on your graphing calculator. I'm going to do it on Desmos. -x squared plus 4x minus 6. So -x squared plus 4x minus 6. All right. So let's look at our graph. I'm going to make it nice and gigantic for us so we can see fabulous things. Okay. So remember that the axis of symmetry is at the vertex. So what is the equation for the axis of symmetry? Remember, it's the x coordinate of your vertex. What is the equation for the axis of symmetry? Okay, well, does everybody see the vertex point right there that I'm touching up here? Yes? This is the axis of symmetry. X equals positive 2. If I take that equation, negative x squared, what was it, minus 2x plus 6? What was that equation? What did we put in? What was number 2? Thank you. If I were to take this equation and plug in a 2 for the x, let x equal 2, I get negative 2 squared plus 4 times 2 minus 6. Let's see, 2 squared is 4, so I have negative 4 plus 8 minus 6 is 4 minus 6, or negative 2, and that's what my vertex is. It's the ordered pair 2, negative 2. So my axis of symmetry is always the x coordinate of the vertex. X equals 2. Write that down. Axis of symmetry, x equals 2. Your vertex is the ordered pair 2, negative 2. Your vertex is the ordered pair 2, negative 2. Okay. So does this graph increase, or sorry, does it have a maximum or a minimum? Has a maximum. Why? Yeah, because this is negative and you saw that the graph went like this, right? What is this value? What is the highest y value this graph goes? Y equals negative 2. What is the domain and the range? Well, the domain is all real numbers. It's always all real numbers for parabolas. All real numbers. But what about the range? What's the highest y value? It's negative 2. So that means y has to be less than or equal to negative 2. Is this making sense? If it's the maximum, that's the highest. If it's the minimum, it's the lowest. Where does this graph increase? So it's increasing on all the values of x that are less than 2. It increases for all the values of x that are less than 2. So it increases when x is less than 2. It decreases for all the values of x that are greater than 2. Okay. Let's look at number 3. Let's put this equation into Desmos. Negative 2x squared plus 3x plus 3. This will be the last one that we graph. X equals negative 2x squared plus 2x plus 3. I think that's what it was. Is that right? Okay. Holy moly, let's look at this one. It's what? It's plus 3x plus 3. So I'm going to click on this point right here, which is my vertex. Do you see this is my vertex? So my axis of symmetry is my x coordinate of my vertex. My axis of symmetry is my x coordinate. So the axis of symmetry takes place at the equation x equals, yes, x equals 0.75 or x equals 3/4. Okay. My vertex, well, I know it's the x coordinate, 3/4. And then I thought it was 4.125, right? That's the same thing as 4 1/8. 4 1/8. Or you could write it as 0.75, comma 4.125. Does this graph have a maximum or a minimum? Has a maximum. What is the highest my graph goes? Well, yeah. y equals 4.125, or 4 1/8. What is the domain? The domain is all real numbers. What is the range? Well, this is a maximum. That means this is the highest it can go. So how am I going to write that? All my y values are what? Less than or equal to 4.125. So this graph is looking like this. This is my x equals 3/4 line. So this side of the graph is increasing. So for all values of x that are less than 3/4, it's increasing. But everything that comes after 3/4, it's decreasing. So for all values of x that are greater than 3/4, it decreases. Think of this in terms of like the slope. Here this has positive slope. Here this has negative slope. That means it's decreasing. Okay. I'm going to skip number 4 and we're going to go right to this word problem. So I want to get you guys started on your homework. All right. So f of t equals negative 5t squared plus 20t plus 60 models the approximate height in feet of an object t seconds after it is launched. So t probably stands for time because it's in seconds. How many seconds does it take the object to hit the ground? And what is the maximum height? So let's talk about this. It says that this function represents the height of an object. It's negative, so I know that my parabola is going to do something like this, right? It's going to look something like that. What is my y-intercept? My y-intercept is 60. And can we do negative time? Like, can we count backwards in time? No. So that means when t equals, this is my t-axis, when t equals 0, this is already 60 feet in the air. So imagine standing on the rooftop. You're on the roof and you're launching something up in the air and it's going to fall back down, right? So you're launching your math textbook or your Chromebook or whatever it is, okay? So we need to figure out after how many seconds does it take the object to hit the ground? Well, when it hits the ground, what is the value of my function? Like, what is the height of my function? What is this height? This is my vertical. What's this height on the vertical? 0. This means set this function, negative 5t squared plus 20t plus 60, set it equal to 0. I have to set it equal to 0 and solve for t. How am I going to do that? Because when the height is 0, it's hitting the ground. How do I solve this though? I probably have to factor it, right? Because that's the only way that you guys know how to solve. So let's think about our factoring rules. Does this have a GCF? Yes, it does. What is it? I'm going to take out a negative 5 because I'm factoring. It's easier when I don't have a negative coefficient. So I'm going to take out a negative 5. I'm going to kind of write it off over to the side. And I'm going to divide every single one of these terms by negative 5, including my 0. Because it doesn't matter. 0 divided by anything is still 0. So this negative 5t squared divided by negative 5 is just now t squared. Positive 20t divided by negative 5 is now negative 4t. And positive 60 divided by negative 5 is now negative 12 equals 0. So now I'm going to go to my times plus chart because I know that the factors that I choose are the factors that I use. What number am I putting on the times side? Negative 12. What number am I putting on the plus side of my t-chart? Okay. So let's just list the factors of 12. Let's see. 1 times 12, 2 times 6, and 3 times 4. Which one of those could potentially give me a difference of 4? 2 and the 6. One of them has to be positive and one of them has to be negative. Which one do I want to make negative to give me a sum of -4? The 6. So that factors out to be t minus 6 times t plus 2 equals 0. But remember, since this equals 0, that means t minus 6 equals 0 or t plus 2 equals 0. And when I solve this, right, I add 6 to both sides. That means that my time is 6 seconds or my time is -2 seconds. Is it possible for that book that you threw off the roof to hit the ground -2 seconds before you even threw it? That just doesn't even make sense, right? So can you have a negative time value? No. So how long did it take you? How long did it take your textbook to land, or your computer, or whatever you threw, Mrs. Bischoff? How long did it take her to fall and hit the ground? 6 seconds. 6 seconds to hit the ground. That's the first part of this question. The second part of this question says, what is the maximum height? Well, what do we know about the maximum? The maximum happens where? Who said that? Awesome. The maximum happens at the vertex. So how am I going to figure out what the vertex is, Lanaya? I'm going to use the equation, -5t squared plus 20t. I'm using the original equation, plus 60. And I'm going to have to find the axis of symmetry first, which means that x equals -b over 2a. So how do I do that? Well, I have -20, b is 20, over 2 times a is -5. So really I have -20 over -10, which means that my axis of symmetry is taking place at the line x equals 2. So really it's time 2 seconds, right? Our x is really a t. So then I take that and I plug it back in, right? So -5 times my value is 2 squared plus 20 times 2 plus 60. Well, let's see, 2 squared is 4 times -5 is -20 plus 40 plus 60. Well, -20 plus 40 is a +20 plus 60 is 80. So what is the maximum height? What is it? Yeah, it's 80 feet. Max height is 80 feet.